Thank you very much. Well, gentlemen, thanks so much for being here. You have the interesting task today of channeling your candidates for us. So what I'd like to say at the outset is, for those of you in the audience with cards, we welcome your questions. If I could ask you to keep the questions short and your handwriting fairly legible, it will be easier for me to read them and to pass them along, and those will be brought up periodically. For those of you on the stage, because of the number and the time, I will request that the speeches be kept to a negligible minimum, and in the interest of mixing it up and chatting around, feel free to jump in and make this something of a conversation. But we want to talk about America's role in the world, about foreign policy and foreign assistance, about engaging this planet, the troubled planet that it is. But before I do that, I thought maybe we could go right to a sort of what-if scenario. It's the day after the inauguration, and your candidate is in office and is awakened at 3 o'clock in the morning by his or her national security advisor and told that Fidel Castro has died. What does your candidate, now president, do? Who wants to start?
I will jump in here and be daring for the Richardson campaign. You know, Governor Richardson, what he has been known for, and I think what would have to happen is all of his aides would have to restrain him from getting on a plane and flying to Cuba and meeting with Raul, the brother, who's the heir apparent. But more seriously, I think that he would see this as a great opportunity to engage Cuba. I think he would see this as an opportunity for a new direction in the relationship, and he would, at the highest possible level in his administration, my guess would be, would appoint somebody to get down there and get on top of it and use it as an opportunity to move in a new direction.
Would Barack Obama send someone or go to Cuba, drop the embargo?
Well, I think you'd have to sort of figure out what the specific action would be, but the point would be engagement. And as Senator Obama made clear last night in the speech, actually, he's not going to wait for somebody to die to do that. We have got to step up our engagement. And the big point that he's trying to make is we should not think that diplomacy is weakness. I don't know where the idea got created in this country that somehow, I guess, we're bad at talking to people. We ought to be able to go out and engage and pursue our interests.
So are you saying that he would not, if he's not going to wait for somebody to die to engage, would he get on an airplane or go down and talk to Fidel Castro right now? Is he prepared?
I don't know that he'd get on an airplane and go down to talk to him, but he would engage. He would engage in conversations with the Cuban government to a much greater degree
than the
current administration has done. I'm actually not familiar with his specific position. I would alter the embargo. I voted to do so several times as a member of Congress. I feel fairly confident that Senator Obama has voted similarly.
How about
to alter the embargo?
How about Mr. Edwards?
I think we should all assume that for purposes of the questions that we've not prepared, that we'll just say what we think and let you guess whether that's really what our candidates think.
Plausible deniability, right?
I think the
There's got to be a job in the administration for someone like you.
Actually, I think with that point of view, just about any administration. I think the United States should be on the side of democracy. I don't think that we should try to impose it at the point of our American military's guns. If there is a point in a society that has not been a democratic state, where there are forces, internal forces for democracy, if there's someone standing in front of a tank, like in Tiananmen Square, I think the American president should not be on the phone talking with the government about how to keep the status quo. I think the American president and the American government should side with forces of democracy. If we have that opportunity in Cuba, if we have the opportunity to side with forces of democracy, not by invading Cuba, but through our good offices, through our moral leadership, through our moral authority, which we need to recapture, then I think we should do it.
Javier Becerra would like to welcome you. Thank you very much for joining us. We were told you were en route, and we're glad you're here.
Pleased to be here.
The question that's on the table, and hasn't been completely visited yet, is the day after the inauguration, Canada is awakened in the wee hours of the morning by national security advisors saying Fidel Castro has died. What does your president do?
Am I on?
You're on.
The first thing Chris does is he picks up the phone and he speaks to whomever he can in Cuba in Spanish, communicating directly to that leadership in Cuba, and says, we're going to try to work through diplomatic channels, understanding that we have the military might to do what we wish, but recognizing that his strong relationship with Latin America, having worked as a Peace Corps volunteer in the Dominican Republic, having taken the time as a Peace Corps volunteer to learn how to speak Spanish while he was in the Dominican Republic, will help him navigate the difficult waters with a new Cuba, ensuring that America's interests are taken care of, but also communicating in Spanish.
What's he say about
that he will also make sure Cuban interests are taken care of.
What's he say in Spanish about the trade and travel embargo?
Bueno, te lo puedo decir todo en español si quieres. Lo que va a decir es...
Pues si quieres hacer todo eso en español, podemos hacerlo.
Muy bien. Bravo. I think what he would tell the Cuban leadership is what he has said throughout his experience as a senator and as a world leader, and that is that we believe that diplomacy works. We believe we have interests around the world, and we believe that the Cuban people will find that in partnership with us, they can advance and we can move forward without having to use the type of military might that we saw not only used in Iraq, but fail in Iraq.
Congressman McGovern, we heard Hillary Clinton last night to a question not altogether unlike this one when asked would she meet with some people who have been identified as adversaries, if not enemies of the United States. Would she meet with them? How would she reach out? And she said, well, look, I don't want to get caught in being used in a propaganda play, essentially. So in a situation like this, it's a little bit different. What's her objective? What does she do?
Well, I should tell you that I haven't spoken to her much about the issue of Cuba. I'm not sure Fidel Castro will ever die. And I should tell you by way of, full disclosure that I too have voted to lift the embargo and lift the travel restriction and co-sponsored legislation to do that. Having said all that, I think what Senator Clinton was talking about last night, and I think what she would do in the case of Fidel Castro's passing, is she would assemble together the best and the brightest on her team and figure out a strategy that is best for the Cuban people. We want to help encourage a peaceful transition to democracy in Cuba. We don't want to use our military might to do that. There's ways for us to be able to accomplish that. And what she would like to do is have negotiations, not just for the sake of negotiations. I mean, sitting down with somebody just for a cup of coffee without doing the preparation so that it's a meaningful negotiation is useless. If you want to change things, whether it be in Cuba or whether it be in Iran or Syria or wherever, you need to do the groundwork, to put in the time and the effort to set the stage so that when the principals meet, or when the relevant people meet, that you actually accomplish something. And I think that's how she would approach this.
She want to go there? I mean, have you ever?
I haven't asked her that. I've been there many times. I'd recommend it. But look, I mean, I think I don't think it would be useful for an American president to go to Cuba or send his or her Secretary of State to Cuba, for meaningless talks. I think in order to take a step like that, you want to set the groundwork so that, in fact, there is a partnership that develops, and so that when you actually have those talks, that something good can come out of it. So, simply saying, I'll go to Cuba the next day, or I'll send my Secretary of State, without first acknowledging that there's a lot of work to do in preparation for that, I think is may sound good, but I don't think it's useful.
The question of engagement, this is, after all, the Center for U.S. Global Engagement, and the word engagement has come up again and again and again. Certainly the Iraq Study Group talked about engagement. So how you engage your adversaries, you're not going to go for meaningless talks, but you want to engage nonetheless. How does President Obama do that, if there's a President Obama, with respect to Iran?